heading into some serious trouble. The BJP thinks India's power comes from a centralized, unified vision. Actually, India's power comes. It's a fight, and we're pretty convinced we'll win the fight. I didn't walk 4,000 kilometers because, I like walking 4,000 kilometers. I walked 4,000 kilometers because there was no other way to get our message across.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have the unique privilege, of course, of welcoming one of the most distinguished figure in Indian politics, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi, for joining us. You went to Bharat Jodo Yatra, you met people. It was a really time of reinvigoration of the Congress party, and also you got to learn so many things. So what did you learn, and how are you going to translate those insights?
What I learned in the Yatra was 2-3 different things. One, I realized that what is called the politician in the West and in India is basically dead, right? It's a category that has collapsed on itself. If you want to do politics, you cannot use the same old rules that you were using before. It doesn't work. And so you have to do it with a completely new imagination and in a different manner. That was one thing I learned. And the second thing I realized, which is connected to the first, is that huge part of why the politician is dead is because he's not listening anymore. Politician has gone into a zone where he just wants to please at all cost. What people actually want is not somebody who just listens to them. What they want is a conversation. What they want is sometimes for him to be challenged or her to be challenged, and sometimes for them to be challenged, right? And that conversation is gone.
The dominant image of India in the past 10 years has been of economic development, somehow curiously with existing problems. So what do you think in the past 10 years, what has worked, what hasn't worked?
Whenever you talk about economic development, right, you have to ask the question, in whose interest is that economic development taking place? Any economic system that grows, it never grows in the interest of everybody. It always grows in the interest of some groups. The question to ask is, what is the nature of that growth and who is benefiting from that growth? Right next to the figure of growth in India, you have the figure of unemployment in India. So India is growing, but the way it's growing is by concentrating wealth, by massively concentrating wealth towards very few people. And most of the growth is happening based on natural resources, on consumption, and not on production, which for a country like India is a real problem, because without a production system, without a production network, without manufacturing, country the scale of India simply cannot employ its people. Similar to the United States, we are operating on a debt sort of model, and we are no longer producing things. The real challenge in India is how do we set up a production economy is able to give large numbers of people jobs. We have 2 or 3 businesses that pretty much control our entire business system. We have Mr. Adani. Everybody knows he's directly connected to the Prime Minister. He owns all our ports, all our airports, our infrastructure, agriculture, mines, power. That level of concentration, you'll get growth, but you won't get any distribution. And a country like India needs distribution.
So why do you think this discontent and this growing inequality, the highest unemployment rates, why do you think this has not translated into like electoral outcomes or even like mobilization of people?
There is massive mobilization of people, but for an election, right, you need infrastructure to fight an election. So you need a free media to fight an election. You need a fair legal system to fight an election. You need fair election commission to fight. You need access to finance. You need institutions that are neutral. Imagine the United States where